a lot of what banks can do for lending and loans. So if the states want to take that power, corporations want to take that power, banks want to keep that power, so they're going to have to get into it, right? Decentralized autonomous organizations are going to want to get into it, right? Freaking crypto natives are going to want to get into it. Lots of different people are going to want to get into this stablecoin game, so it's something to pay attention to. But Fidelity is also, all these corporations, they're getting into Bitcoin and crypto heavy here because the next 4 years is laying the groundwork really for that next financial system over the next 10, 20, 30 years. But Fidelity will let its investors directly invest in crypto through its new IRA plan. So clients of the brokerage firm have increasingly voiced interest in a tax-advantaged way to trade and hold crypto. And so they're going to allow you to have your IRA with Fidelity and be able to buy and sell crypto. Awesome. Makes things easier for people to get into the space. Also, Kentucky. So Wyoming, Kentucky, all these states, right? Kentucky actually has enacted a law supporting self-custody of cryptocurrencies already, right? So the fact that they're doing this is interesting. I think Kentucky has been trying to get into the mining game for Bitcoin as well. And so that's going to help the miners custody their own coins. But here's a couple interesting bits from both Charles Hodgkinson as well as Pantera Capital and Ondo talking about this trend. And I want you guys to listen to these two bits of information here. I think it's really important to kind of see where we're going this year with these kind of corporate or bank or DAO based stable coins and kind of how they're going to affect how people interact with crypto. But let's take a quick listen to this and we'll dissect it a little bit after.
There's two bills that are currently being discussed in the House and Senate. The one that's most likely to pass in the next 60 to 90 days is the stablecoin bill. And then the second one's the market structure bill. Once those two bills pass, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Facebook are going to say, hey, we're crypto people now. And so they're going to put wallets in their platforms because they can capture an enormous amount of the market. When you add their user bases of 3 billion people, and when they have those 3 billion users, it's like they have cryptocurrency wallets right in Windows, right in Facebook, right in your cell phone apps, right in iOS. And because they now can legally hold stablecoins and use stablecoins, they're going to do it because they don't like paying the processing fees on credit cards. So they'll issue their own stablecoins or partner with people to do that, and they have feeless transactions inside the system. And then suddenly these tech companies become financial service providers, and they have so much money and so much power that they'll push through. Once that's there and you have a good regulatory regime, it's very easy then to click a button to create yield products on top of that. So that's what's going to bring the value flow in, because the users already are wired into that system. Their money's already there. Their credit cards are already there. Their purchase power is already there. And there's just too much temptation not to do that. And the competitive equilibria are such that they have to do that. Once these two bills pass, that opens the floodgates, and that's 3 billion people that enter in.
So that's pretty big, right? Essentially what that means is if we go back and look at on Bitcoin here, that M2 money supply, as people have more money to put into speculative assets and the market, right? If these bills get passed sooner rather than later within the year, right? What does that mean when we have that money that can come into the system? Well, now it can come in easier, right? It can come in faster. It can come in and hit harder, right? So the more that you have these corporations do this, become financial institutions per se, they're going to start becoming banks in and of themselves, right? Like he said, Apple, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, these guys are going to do it. And so you're going to have banks like Fidelity, BlackRock, and others. They're going to want to get into this very, very hard, because if they don't, right, then the tech companies are going to eat their lunch. And again, like I said before, if the government wants to track any of these stable coins or track people and seeing what they're doing with their financial assets, right now, how do they track your data, your information that you're doing online? Through Apple, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, right? So they have backdoors and agreements with these companies through the NSA, FBI, CIA, and other 3-letter agencies like the SEC in the United States. And so the United States, I think, is going in the direction of, it does not want to look like the all-seeing eye of Sauron. It does not want to come up with a central bank digital currency, but instead have the tech companies absorb a little bit of the banking system because they're already working well with them. And then that'll allow them to basically look at that data, and see what people are doing and try to, have some control over that while not being overly authoritative and being, like a, what do you call it, a tyrant type state, which is what a central bank digital currency would be closer to. So that right there, that little bit of information is very interesting. But this information here, I think, really illuminates what Charles Hoskinson said there. Because you could be like, okay, how does what Charles is saying, how does that really look in the market? Well, we only see that right now with USDC as well as PayPal USD and a few others. So that's going to become more plentiful. But here we have this guy from Figure Markets talking about stable coins becoming a ubiquitous form of payment over the next 4 years and how that's going to disrupt the credit market. So take a listen to this because I think these two videos kind of speak to each other.
Tokenization is such a broad term, and I think it's thrown around very loosely for different things. But what's the most powerful aspect of tokenization to you? And what do you think most people don't know about tokenization that they should?
The benefit of tokenization, and I use the word very liberally because I think what you want to do is you want to build native digital assets, and you don't necessarily want to tokenize an asset that exists somewhere else. And the reason being is you want to be able to get true asset perfection from a lending standpoint. Ultimately, there's two giant macro forces that are at play that I think are going to come to fruition over the next 4 years. One is stablecoin and yielding stablecoin will ultimately be ubiquitous payment. That's going to cause a massive shift of liabilities from the banking system to move into those coins. Because if I can self-custody, if I can earn interest, if I can transact and buy coffee and buy Bitcoin, like why do I want a bank account for that? I'd rather have my coin. That outflow of liabilities to that coin is going to cause a second macro effect, which is traditionally those liabilities have financed the credit market. And so you're going to need some kind of a solution to step into that credit ecosystem in the absence of those bank-funded liabilities that were propping up the credit market before. And I think that blockchain is uniquely positioned to do that.
So very interesting data info and all of that, but it kind of speaks to each other, right? It's like, well, these stable coins are useful for these corporations and banks and tech companies and everybody to be, what do you call it? Using them, interacting with them now that they're regulated and available for everybody. But the thing that's really going to force them there is that competitive advantage, but then also the ability for these tech companies and stuff to be able to start creating credit, start to being able to create yield. I think, who was it in the chat? Wait, hold on a second.